Yo,
Hey,
welcome
Mitch.
back to the show. Welcome back to the show. It's been a minute, and
minute.
here we are, Layman's Term Show. Mitch and Keith got some topics for discussion today, and we're going to lead in with a little scripture from Judges to frame up our discussion. So, Judges 4, something or the other. Hit us with it, Keith.
Judges 4, 8, and 9. Barak said to her, "If you go with me, I will go, but if you don't go with me, I won't." "Certainly I will go with you," said Deborah, "but because of the course you are taking, the honor will not be yours, for the Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of the woman." So Deborah went with Barak to Kadesh.
All right.
So we are going to start a series about some women in the Bible. So today we're talking about Deborah, and I don't know for sure, but one of the only female judges. I don't know if there was more than one, but
she's my favorite.
she's obviously a female judge. And she's talking about going to fight a battle, and her commander is saying, "You got to go with me." And she's like, "Well, we'll go, but you better be ready not to get the credit for the
Check your pride at the door.
Check your pride at the door." So, Mitch, who's someone that you think maybe deserved a little more credit than they got in a situation? In a situation where you were like, man, that person did a lot of work and they didn't get a whole lot of credit.
Well, I think maybe as a culture we overlook or don't put enough glory to some of the small characters in big stories of I don't know, I'd say probably like pop culture or whatever you're talking, athletic teams or
Sure.
all right, so talk about, who's the big heroes of remember when Patrick Mahomes had the high ankle sprain and all the issue, right? Like, and there was a playoff, like all that, right? Phenomenal. Like, we know the story and the overcoming the adversity and the pain he played, right?
Yep.
What about who was the personal trainer that like
the PT people,
right? Like worked around the clock on devising and creating a system that allowed him to play through the pain and throw that in air quotes or whatever. But I think there's probably a whole team of people that without which the pain would have not been. The pain would have been so immense you wouldn't have been able to play through it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
The experience of taping it the right way. Anyway, stuff like that. Like those are just people that nobody has any idea who they are.
Yeah. You want a controversial take?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, we'll get into it. So I think there's two situations in life, and I'll go with the easy one first, and then we'll ease into the other one, which is controversial. I think a lot of times in my life, when there's something that we do, me and my wife, do to the house, right? We lay some hardwood floor, or we rearrange a bedroom, or do some kind of construction or whatever, right? People that know us really well know that my wife is highly involved in that process, and I am more of a sideshow. Get the beverage, hand the tool, block the kids from coming in and bothering her, but she is the heavy lifter in a lot of these projects. And like when people come over and see it, they're always like, "Wow, Keith, this looks great."
Oh.
Right? You know what I mean? Like, I did the work because I'm a man. And I do, a man does the construction stuff, right? And so I know we've got a deck that we've got to replace probably at the end of this year or early next year. And sure, I'm going to probably be heavily involved in the planning and this and that, but I know Shauna, my wife's going to be cutting the boards and screwing and I'll just kind of be there going, "Yep, you're doing good," right? And I will get all the credit. She will not get the credit that she deserves on a lot of these projects, right? All right, ready for the controversial one?
Sure.
we played a video for Mother's Day, right? Which I think is was funny, but at the same time does kind of touch on it, right? And this video
Often
is
stereotypical.
often
And
stereotypical.
often stereotypes end up being chuckles, some funny because there's
a hint of truth to it,
All
right? And it's
So what'd you have?
it's I think that a lot of the times husbands in the relationship do not get as much credit for raising kids as they deserve. Just in general, as a stereotype, right? And it's funny because it's kind of true. But when you got those sports players on, they just won the Super Bowl or the championship. What are they like? Hi, mom. Thanks, mom. Like and there's a very special relationship between mothers and their kids, and that makes sense. But there's a lot of work that goes into it. From a male perspective, and I don't think they get as much credit as they deserve. That's my hot
All right,
take.
you want my
Can't wait for all the comments.
Want my controversial counterpoint?
Yes,
So I was a stay-at-home dad for 5 years.
you were.
And I felt so bad for my female counterparts in that occupation of at-home parenting. Because I would just get praise and accolades for meeting minimum baseline expectations, right? People, you'd be in
I can see that,
right?
I
You'd
can
be
see
in a
that.
group.
Oh, Mitch, he's so great.
No, you'd
because
be-
his kids aren't dead yet.
Yeah, right. You'd be at a group. We'd be at a group, and you could like see it. It'd be like in the same circle of stuff. And I had friends that like we had orchestrated days to the zoo and story
Sure.
time at the library and
Yeah.
like we kinder music. Like there was a circle of community, right?
Yeah.
That of us at home parents like did stuff together. Gave the kids social time together and stuff like that. But sure, there were some people when they found out you were a stay-at-home dad, they just thought that was, hashtag unemployed, right?
Right. So you're looking for a job?
Yeah. So you're looking for that's one side of it. But then when people understood that actually no, this was my wife and I made this decision, and I was it made more sense.
Sure.
For
From
me,
a
my
financial-
temperament and the role and her job and and where we were in careers, and just made more sense to do it this way. And I was excited for the opportunity to try it out, and I did. Oh, just wonderful. Just, oh my gosh, that's just so great. So glad you, right?
Yeah.
Oh, look at, you guys, you're out doing things, right? Like kids are alive.
They're
Like
dressed for the day.
right.
They're not wearing
They have-
pajamas.
They have
They've been fed.
They have shoes on, stuff like that. And then I felt so bad because a lot of times, if somebody said like, "What do you do?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm a stay-at-home dad." Oh my gosh, that's just blah 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 blah. And then sometimes I got a friend there, and they're like, "Oh, what do you? Oh, I'm a stay-at-home mom." And they're like, "Well, what else do you do?" Right? There was like this
Okay,
expectation
all right,
that they're like, "Okay, yeah, of course you are." Baseline,
You got a side hustle?
Yeah, what's the side hustle,
Yeah.
right?
You got 4 kids. Great. What's your
Yeah,
side
yeah,
hustle?
great.
Or 2?
Yeah.
What are you doing to earn some extra money
Yeah.
for that family?
It's like I got points for my kids living and breathing, and then they were just like, in the eyes of popular opinion and judgment, it was like, well, what else you bringing to the table? I was
That's
I was
funny.
like, that's absurd. And they all,
can
my
see
friends
that.
always appreciated it when I pointed it out, the absurdity of the inequity of.
Oh, I could see that. I mean, there were definitely some
I don't know
times when-
why, but it would just be like, oh my gosh, that's stay-at-home dad. That's great, Stay-at-home mom. Oh, that's nice. What else you do?
Yeah. Yeah, I was a stay-at-home dad for a hot second, right? And I could see that. I think the first time that now Shauna was a stay-at-home mom for a really long time, I think like 10 years. And then our roles reversed, right?
Yeah, you waited till it got easy.
I waited till it got easy. They were old enough to go to school, except for one, right? And I remember the first day that she went to work and she came back, right? Okay. And so she goes to work, she comes back, and she's like, wow, good job. like I could tell that she was like, the house didn't burn down. Good job. The whole place is a mess, right? I mean, it's like a nuclear bomb went off. The kids were having fun. I think Parker was like 2 or like 1.5 or something. And like things are just everywhere. And she was like, all right, kids are alive. House is standing. Good job, buddy. So I could see that.
It just,
That's great. So getting back to like Deborah and talking about, Deborah made a big impact in the, as a judge.
yeah, 40 years, something like that, which I would argue just means a really long time.
A really long time.
But some people would argue that with me.
No, I wouldn't argue that with you.
Seems like a long time to me.
40 years is a very long time. That's about the time I've been on this planet.
Yeah.
So that seems like a long time. What's a woman that has been a significant positive impact on your life? And how does she influence you? And I'm going to put a caveat on this.
Can't be my Grammy.
Cannot be a family member.
Can't be my Grammy.
Can't be your Grammy. Can't be your wife. Can't be your mom.
I had a English teacher in high school that encouraged me to it was literature class, and we'd have to do writing assignments to go along with that, right? And I was pretty good at it, but I didn't read. Like, I'm just a storyteller. So I just could tell stories.
Sure.
But it wasn't from a background of consuming well-told story. It's
Sure.
not, there's like a couple different ways you can go about that, right? And I was just like here on this podcast, just kind of wing it, tell a good story,
Yeah,
right?
just tell a good story.
Tell a good story, just write it down, right? Like write down the story. And she encouraged me because she was like, she had very high standards and pushed me, and then said once, these are one of those things, like I remember very clearly, she was like, you're a really good writer. I've never met a writer so good who doesn't read.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which was like, I don't know if that was like a backhanded compliment, right? Like
that's a typical teacher move, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, interesting. Yeah. And she was like, you could be good if you were well read. Like if you applied yourself to, gleaning the good that others have put out into the world, right? You could learn if you started from, the base that they've set instead of just like trying to make it muddle through it on your own.
Yeah.
And anyway, I really, I think that created a very positive impact on,
and you're still a big reader now.
Yeah,
Even
I'm not
today.
a big reader, but
you
I
read more than a lot of people.
Turned into a reader.
Yeah.
I think that was definitely part of what turned me into a reader.
Nice.
And I hopefully if I've ever said anything that anybody thought, oh, that was pretty good.
It's probably from a book.
Yeah. That wasn't so bad.
That wasn't so
This
bad.
guy's not a complete idiot. I don't know. What about you? Unrelated.
Do you want another teacher example, or you want a boss example?
Ooh, I had a boss example too. But anyway, give me a teacher example.
I had my photography teacher in college. I had taken this course as an elective. I tried to take 15 hours of what I needed to take, and then one class, 3 hours of just a fun class, right? Something to just kind of...
Just 18, huh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I took 21 to 24, but yeah, no, it was just always a purpose. You're supposed to take 15 every semester, and then I would take one that's just like a stupid fun class, right? I took
credit for fly fishing.
You see, that would be a fun class for me. So I took photography. I was like, oh, this will be fun, right? And it was a blast. And my professor, she was just amazing. She knew me probably better than any of the other teachers, even though it wasn't my major, it wasn't my minor at the time. We just really kind of grew, together, and ended up taking another class and another class and another class. And I just remember she was very encouraging through the art. And it wasn't just, you'd have some really good photographers in there that would take these just amazing pictures of people or this or that. And I just couldn't do it. Right. And she really helped me find my style of photography instead of just trying to compare me to other people. It was always just, hey, like, and she would say, from a technical aspect, all my photos were correct, that it had the right exposure, it had the right this and that. It just didn't have, you could say soul or, some kind of,
helped you develop your eye.
yeah. And I ended up, starting to take pictures of landscape photography, buildings and stuff. And through that process, I kind of figured out what my passion was around photography. And I thought it was great. She encouraged me to have my first art show and, sold some pieces of art. And, she just encouraged me through some other stuff, some personal stuff that was going on, even though she wasn't even related to my major or my, advisor or anything. I always would go to her for, advice on certain instances, and she just had a really gentle way of being like, Keith, knock it off. You know what you need to do. Now go do it. It was great. So yeah, I always think of her when I think about that. And I've had some really great bosses too, that have just very similar, right? Like knew me well enough to know that sometimes you just got to be a little firm with me, and just say, stop complaining, shut up, and just go do it. Right.
Yeah. I learned, I had a boss once Jody, who really helped me put into, when doing a job, know your role, know your lane, do your job. And then that earns you the ability to expand on it, right?
Yeah.
You can't expand a role if you're not haven't earned the respect of like to have done the role super well first before you expand, right?
Oh yeah.
First day, she took the job as my manager after I'd already been there for a year or so. But anyway, she moves into the role of in a transitional time. Anyway, first time I meet her, her boss introduces me to her and says, Jody, this is Mitch, he's your maintenance supervisor. She goes, oh my gosh, so glad to meet you. Get me a trash can, a big one. It was awesome. That's our relationship. So we ended up being good friends, but it was funny. It was like, oh, she knew exactly what she needed, and she knew the person to get it. As soon as she saw me, she asked for it, right?
That's funny.
And anyway, so she still refuses to believe that was our first interaction. But yes, it was. Oh, great. Can't remember exact wordage, but it was like, oh, that's wonderful. Get me a trash can.
Get me a trash can.
Big one.
A lot of your relationships start off with kind of an interesting beginning, huh?
It is true.
Yeah.
Go back and listen to episode 1.
Episode 1. Was it 1 or 2?
I don't know.
I don't know. It's one of the first ones.
Actually,
don't
start at the beginning.
It was terrible.
I've learned that from a lot of podcasts. Start in season 2.
Start in season 2. Yes, for sure.
Once you love the characters, then you can go back to the beginning.
And then you can appreciate how far they've gotten too.
Growth happens.
So we kind of talked a little bit about, in the scripture, Barak, right, has to go and do this thing.
He has to go into battle.
He has to go into battle, and he's basically challenging
Deborah.
Deborah
says, hey, go do this thing. Head off to battle. Go do your thing.
And so he's got to go do this now because he's challenged Deborah, hey, why don't you come with me? Otherwise, I'm not going. And she's like, yep, that's fine. Are you ready to take less credit? Are you ready to do all this work and take less credit? So in that idea of choosing the greater good, meaning that you'll get less credit, right? How have you seen that work in your life or maybe some of the lives of people around you where doing people choosing to do something, or you choosing to do something, knowing you're going to get little to zero credit from it, but realizing, hey, this is like the for the greater good in doing it.
I don't know. Like, I don't think. I mean, maybe the bad canned answer would be just like in church life, but like when you have a high concentration of Christians living out, the Christian call in their life and a call to be humble, and then the shared goal of caring for people, being influential on the world in a positive way, oftentimes results in big things, and people don't know where they started, don't know how, right? Don't know how, don't know who's behind it, don't know.
Yeah.
But, God has definitely used some people in small ways that have major impacts.
Yeah.
And often those folks are, you can see it through all our mission stuff, or often those folks are so humble that they don't want to be, they don't want any,
for sure.
They don't want any credit for anything. It's like, oh, it's just responding to God's call. Yeah, but someone had to respond, right?
Yeah. If no one responded, this wouldn't have gotten done.
You chose to respond, right? Which I think sometimes, people lose that. Oh, I was just doing what I was called to do. Yeah. That was huge. You've impacted thousands of lives, right? So I think there's probably, without getting into specifics, there's lots of examples of people who get less credit to impact a greater good.
Yeah. I think
in our circles.
I think I would agree with you on that. I think that there is one commodity in life that you can never get more of: time, right? And so there's so many people that dedicate so much time, and you really don't get to see it until you start. For me, you don't get to see it until you kind of start working at a church, and then you're just here a lot, right? And then you can kind of see all the things that people do. And I think anybody that has ever been deep into a church, past Sunday, they don't realize all the things that need to happen to make it function, and the amount of people that step up with their time to help is incredible. And it's stuff you don't even think about. Like, we've got a volunteer that comes twice a year to go check on the preschool playground equipment to make sure all the nuts are tight and the bolts are tight. And you don't even think about that. You don't even think about, like, well, who's checking that out, right? Just the amount of people that do things around here is astonishing to me, right? And you're right. If you called up 95% of those people, called them out on Sunday, they'd be mad at you for doing it, right?
Oh yeah.
Because they just don't. They're just doing it to be helpful. But really, if it didn't happen, we would definitely need a lot more people to be on staff, I guess. You know what I mean?
Like, you can't have you
can't have a functioning church without a ton of volunteers.
You can't have a big impact without a bunch of little bitty impacts by lots of people.
Yeah.
We can only, the size of impact that just one person can have is very limited if they're just functioning in a silo.
Yeah.
Right. And they don't have the cooperation of people working towards the same common goal.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And so for me, that's like the that's like the big thing. I think that there's just tons of examples that I can think of people volunteering, and even outside of the church, just people volunteering their time to help their community or to help a neighbor or whatever. And you only see like glimpses of it, but it's happening consistent and all the time. And I just really think that's That's amazing because they're not doing it for the credit, right? They're not doing it for some kind of credit. They just see it. They see a greater good. They see how they can help, and they go and help and do it, right? Um, so with that in mind, using some of your gifts, talking about stuff like somebody that's really good with mechanical stuff, helping with the playground, or somebody that's really good with, whatever, helping with this. We're all given these God-given gifts. So how does the story of Deborah really demonstrate the importance of using those God-given gifts in service to others, to you?
I think one of the important things about this story is when you really take it into the context of the time and the situation, and just like we're talking how people respond to God's call. Well, you think like Deborah's very unique in the time and point in history and position of leadership to be held by a woman and to be called into that. What about overcoming all the doubts she had to accepting that call? Just like we're talking about, like somebody had to, before any of this story can happen, and 40 years, a long, long time of peace for Israel, before any of that could happen, Deborah had to confidently respond to the call in her life with authority. Like, this is inspired content by God. Here it is, spoken with authority. I am the vessel of which this information's coming, and it's the truth from the Lord, and let's go live it out. I think I think some of that is what's biggest striking takeaway for me is just think of the internal battle that Deborah had to win before being the leader to lead this campaign.
Yeah.
But, I think probably Barak came in, like, probably rattled some of her confidence, and really had to double down in her faith to carry out the mission.
Yeah. Yeah, and you see that a lot in the Bible of God coming to people and people resisting. Even some of the greats, of the Bible, Moses, and like just that kind of internal struggle of I'm not ready to do this.
Flip a chapter forward. It might just be 1 or 2 pages forward in your Bible, or a couple flick scrolls up, right? A couple flicks on the scroll. Get yourself to Judges 6 with my guy Gideon.
Yeah,
love this guy, but he's always like, but wait,
but wait a minute,
hold on,
wait a tick,
hold on. Let's all right, let's try that again. To be really, 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 really sure.
I knew you were going to bring up Gideon.
Well, we're right there.
He's your favorite.
Yeah. Well, he should have paid more attention to stories of Deborah.
Yeah. Accurate. That's it. That's all the time we got.
Oh, man.
That went by so quick.
Well, it's because I've missed you.
I know. Let's do this again next week.
Let's do it again right now.
Yeah. All right. Let's see you guys.
Bye,
later.
guys.